do you think an investment into an AM5 build will eventually be paying off over time, as the platform may support newer CPUs for longer and may also allow the DDR5 RAM to be possibly reused in the build after, even though one is actually looking for a more budget-oriented build based on, say, 5600 and B550 board, as prices for DDR4 and the AM4 platform are becoming extremely affordable. So this is sort of like the budget. Do you go with the AM4 platform with DDR4 that's kind of dead, but is certainly very affordable if you're a budget shopper? Or should you go for like the budget AM5 build, which is a bit more expensive, but gives you that CPU longevity? And sort of like, could you reuse the DDR5 and stuff like that? Like, is it worth it at the moment?
Right. So yeah, we'll come at it from a is it worth it type situation. Because obviously if you're trying to spend as little as possible, you don't have a computer, you need a computer, you don't have much money, want to spend as little as possible, as I said, obviously AM4 is going to be cheaper and still give you a pretty good gaming experience. Yep. And you've got access to parts like the 5800X 3D. Don't know what that's priced at now. It was like $300, but obviously you want to get something like maybe a 5600. Mm-hmm. That'd be below $200, I'd imagine. I haven't seen prices in the last little bit. But yeah, I would personally cough up the extra money, get myself I've talked about the ASRock B650 MHDV. Won't say the full name. That's $120 US. I would be inclined to spend probably closer to $200 even for a budget system to get like a good quality B650 board, full size ATX board, maybe 4 DIMM slots for a bit of expansion there down the track, a few extra features and things, because I'd plan on using that board it'd be like my B350 investment, but an actually good motherboard.
Yeah.
That, in 1 or 2 generations from now, you could get a 3D V-cache equivalent type CPU and get just a monstrous, like, think about, a decent B350 board with like a Ryzen 5 3600 with DDR4 3200 memory. That was a pretty good value combo back in 2017. And then you upgrade that to a 5800X 3D and you're getting monstrous, like 80% plus gains. So if that's achievable, again, we're just spitballing here. We have no idea what the future brings for the AM5 platform. But if anything's remotely similar to that, then it'd be worth spending a bit more money now to get yourself a half-decent board. DDR5 memories come down significantly. I realize it's still much more expensive than DDR4, probably roughly twice the price for a sort of equivalent type memory. But that's what I'd be doing. I'd be investing in the DDR5 now, because I'm sure like DDR5 6000, CL36, 32, 30, that would be perfectly fine with like a Zen 5 CPU. You'd still get a lot out of that.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to whether you see yourself as an upgrader or you're going to hold onto your system for a long time. Like, there are certainly budget buyers who, they've saved up a lot of money over a long period of time to afford their system, and that's likely to be the case for their next build as well. So if you were, you're saving up a lot of money and you're only looking at like AM4 sort of pricing, and you want the absolute best performance because, you saved up, you want the best value, then I think there's still a case to be made for AM4. Like, if you're not planning on, you're thinking you want the best now and you're going to wait another 5-6 years for an upgrade, then there is that case to be made. You buy the best stuff now, the best value stuff, which would be AM4. But if you see yourself more as that upgrader where, you're thinking, I'm going to buy this now and then I am going to have the budget for a new CPU in a few years. I'm going to have the budget for, maybe a memory upgrade at some point or other upgrades, then it makes more sense to go down that AM5 path. But it really depends on sort of your budget and what you see over time. Yeah. And that's really difficult in the budget class because there are definitely a variety of different shoppers. Like, there are people that spend money consistently throughout many years, but that amount of money is low, which means they're still in the budget class. But then there are people that spend a lot of money at once and then will wait a long time. Yeah. So I think it can depend there.
You have to weigh it all up. I mean, the advantage of AM5 is it is definitely faster in all circumstances right now. It's more power efficient and it's faster. So it's not like it's not the future-proofing angle where you're spending a bit more for basically the same now, hoping it will pay off down the track. You're spending more now and getting more.
That's true. But then, like, price for price, you'd probably be getting...
Cost per frame is roughly the same.
Well, if you've got a really cheap AM4 system,
could be better. Yeah, certainly could be better value. But I also expect things like, like what we predicted with 8 gigabytes versus 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I'm predicting that DDR5 memory will win out massively over DDR4 with the next generation of games.
That's true.
Like what we've seen with Spider-Man, for example, and there's been more examples of that since. DDR5 is clearly the much better memory to use moving forward for games. Like they are going to become much more bandwidth sensitive than they have been, like what we see with Spider-Man. So there's that angle as well. I think you're getting more now, and I think you'll continue to get even more as time progresses. And there's no right now, you can't definitively say you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa. That will only be evident in 2 years' time, where it's like, hey, there's this $300 CPU that offers 100% more performance, and all you have to do is update your BIOS and drop it in. Whereas, you'd have to buy a new motherboard and new memory for the AM4, which, that may be only like $150 cost in a few years' time, but it's a cost you don't have to incur. And that cost would offset how much great value the AM4 was now. Without knowing the future, it's very hard to answer accurately.
I'm thinking more like min-max people where an AM5, even the entryest of level AM5 system is right on the edge for them in terms of their budget. And that might mean significantly reducing their GPU performance or whatever.
Yeah.
It really depends, like, how budget do you mean? Like, if you can definitely afford an AM5 entry-level system, that's probably the way to go. But again, there are people who their total system budget, like maybe $600 or something, in which case AM5 is a significant portion of that.
The question is, do you think the investment will eventually pay off?
Yeah.
My answer is yes. I can't tell you for sure. It's like hedge your bets kind of thing. I'm not giving financial advice on investing in PC parts, but I would invest in AM5 personally because I would enjoy the extra performance I'm getting now and features, and I think down the track it will just continue to pay off. So that I would be going AM5. I would not be looking at AM4 anymore for a full system build. If you obviously have an AM4 motherboard already and some DDR4 memory, and you've got a older Ryzen 5 2600, 3600, 5800X3D is an awesome way to breathe a lot more life into that PC.
And I guess for AM4, you'd probably be better off, like, if you were doing a full system build, like looking at used parts and used market sort of thing, because you'd be that budget constrained that
there's so many ways to go about it. So like I said, if you're trying to save every last dollar, then AM4 is very appealing. If you're like, look, I want to make sure I'm getting good bang for my buck, but I'm not penny pinching. I've got a bit of money to spend here. I could afford a 7600 or a 7700 and, a sort of mid-range entry-level-ish type B650 board. Then I'd be like, look, just stop thinking about it, get AM5. So hopefully we'll get some great CPUs down the track that you can just throw on that board with a BIOS update.